I went over there today. He remembers.
Glad to see everybody here this morning. We're always glad to have you come out and participate in our county government. It's the board's practice that prior to the commencement of our board meeting and before calling the meeting to order, that a prayer be given. The board member who delivers the prayer may make reference to his or her own religious faith, just as you might refer to yours when offering a prayer. We wish to emphasize, however, that members of all religious faiths are welcome not only in these meetings, but in our community as well. The participation of all citizens in the process of self-government will help our Board of Supervisors to better serve the good people of Mecklenburg County. This time I'm going to call on Mr. Tanner to deliver the prayer.
Let us pray. Glorious Lord God, the great architect of the universe, the giver of all good gifts and graces. We come to you this hour asking for your blessings and guidance as we are gathered together to conduct the business of this county. Lord, we pray for the sick, the distressed, and the grieving in our communities. We ask that you lay your hand upon them and let them know you are with them. And Lord, we pray for our nation. Amidst the fear, anger, grief, confusion, and pain, please be with us and guide our hearts and minds. And Holy Father, only you know what lies ahead. None of us are promised tomorrow, but we may live our lives in a manner that is pleasing in your sight. We humbly ask you to forgive us our sins and bless us in all that we do. In your holy name I do pray. Amen.
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 At this time, I will now call this meeting of the Mecklenburg County Board of Supervisors to order. A couple of housekeeping things. Make sure, if you would, please, to turn off or mute your cell phone so we don't have those interruptions during our meeting. And want to remind you, we do have a public comment session. You have to sign up at the back. We ask that you please, and we encourage you to give us your concerns about anything concerning our county. We encourage you to come forward and talk to us about that. This time I would ask that you stand for our pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Board, you have in your packet the minutes of the July 11th board meeting. If there are no corrections to those minutes, the chair would entertain a motion to approve them.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we approve the July 11th, 2022 minutes.
Motion to approve the July 11th minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The agenda you have before you, I have no additions or deletions to that agenda. Does anyone else have anything they wish to add or delete at this time? If not, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Motion to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. It's always a pleasure when we have an opportunity to honor one of our citizens. And this morning we do have the opportunity to do that, to honor Mr. Howard Robinson. And I'm going to ask Mr. Brinkley if he would do the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to honor Mr. Robinson. The resolution states, whereas the Mecklenburg County Board of Supervisors does hereby wish to honor Mr. Howard E. Robinson on reaching the milestone of his 100th birthday, and whereas Mr. Robinson was the youngest of 10 children who grew up in a time of segregation, which didn't allow for the free education in public schools for minorities, which therefore made him work at the Thine Institute in order to pay his tuition, and whereas Mr. Robinson graduated as a valedictorian of his class at the Thine Institute and went on to the Virginia State College, now VSU, where he earned a full 4-year scholarship and met and married his wife, Anna Smith. And whereas upon graduation, Mr. Robinson taught at the Thine Institute before being drafted into the Army in 1942 for World War II, and therefore becoming a member of the greatest generation who defended America against Army aggressors. And whereas upon returning from war, he again returned to Thine and taught several curriculums before they transferred to teaching at East End High School in September of 1953, in the first free public education school in the county, and where he taught for another 35 years until his retirement in 1987. And therefore, it is being resolved that the Mecklenburg County Board of Supervisors does hereby wish to honor Mr. Howard E. Robinson, who taught, counseled, and motivated over 10,000 students in his 50-plus years of teaching in Mecklenburg County for his 100th birthday. Mr. Robinson.
Yeah. They're gonna get him.
You can get it more. Don't worry about it.
This Monday up there said you taught her in the 8th grade. You
That's impressive.
You've been there since 1 o'clock this morning.
He taught you in the 8th
Oh,
grade?
my goodness. Bless his heart. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. What a wonderful career, what a wonderful life that gentleman has lived. Good for him. All right, our next order of business is a public hearing concerning a rezoning application by Sidney Parrish. Mr. Hendrick?
You have an application by Cindy Scott Parrish to rezone from residential R1 to agricultural to allow for personal livestock. This property identified as county tax number 202000-A-082, zoned as residential R1, is located on the south side of Highway 903 at its intersection with Starboard Drive, Election District 6, County of Mecklenburg, reference deed book LR-19-253.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone representing Mr. Parrish wish to speak before we go to public hearing?
Good morning. My name is Miranda. I live at 5398 Highway 903. We currently have 6 pigs on the land, 4 adults and 2 babies. We do not plan on getting any more pigs. I have helped the mamas deliver their babies. When the mamas would not take care of the babies, I took them into our home and bottle fed them. They are more like family than anything else. When we brought the pigs home on April 26, 2020, I gave them a bath because that's what you do when you bring home a new family member. When we brought our pigs home on April 26, 2020, the for sale sign for the property beside us was not currently posted. At the meeting on July 21, 2022, it was brought to our attention that our pigs' aroma has been offensive to customers at the Lake Country Home Center. However, there are cows located across the road in a pasture that we can smell sitting on our front porch. It was not until we were notified in June 2022 that we were in violation with the zoning of the land by having our pigs. Had we been aware of the zoning rules, we would have applied to be rezoned before we got the pigs. Therefore, we come before you today to fix the zoning issue so our pets can continue to live their best lives on our property.
Thank you. All right, let me present you with our protocols that we use for all of our public hearings and citizens' comments, because I want you to understand that these rules will be strictly adhered to. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The time limit will be strictly enforced. And we've got a color, whatever you call it over here, that, green, yeah. When that hits red, you will be cut off. So I know it may appear rude, but that's what's going to happen. So it's when the green light turns yellow, the speaker will have 1 minute remaining. When the yellow light turns red, the speaker's 3 minutes have elapsed. Citizens' comments is an opportunity for individuals to address the board. The board will not answer questions or engage in dialogue with any person addressing the board during citizen comments. If each speaker will provide his contact information, telephone number, and email address on the sign-up sheet, county staff will follow up, if necessary, concerning matters addressed to the board by the speaker. Okay, all right. So at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider the rezoning application of Sydney Parish. Anyone wishing to speak to this matter, please come forward at this time.
I didn't sign the sign-up sheet. My name is Bill Jones. I'm on the board of directors for the Homeowners Association of the Portside Subdivision. And so I'm opposed to rezoning of the house and lot at the corner of Highway 903 and Starboard. Currently, the zoning of this area is not agriculture. However, multiple pigs and hogs are already on site and have been sold based on information that was shared at the zoning meeting that was recently held. This meeting should be focused, in my opinion, on enforcing and not amending or allowing spot rezoning out of compliance with existing regulations per the agricultural low density setback document for Mecklenburg County. I have a copy of this document in my chair. I'd like to highlight the more salient points in the reference document as follows. Section 3A-73 says setback for swine structures from property and public highways shall be at least 1,000 feet. Section 3A-74 says a setback of 3 miles from flood easements by NC Power in connections with Lake Gaston Reservoir. I'm not exactly sure if this applies, but regardless, as a homeowners association, we are concerned about environmental impact to the surrounding lake due to runoff and seepage from groundwater from this pig farm. Some additional points for consideration. The house and lot in pig farm sits is about 1.5 acres on the corner of 903 and Starboard Drive. Starboard Drive is a private drive owned and maintained by the Portside subdivisions, and members pay annual dues and potential special assessments to maintain the road. The owners of this property haven't been granted permission to access pig farm using a private road, and this road is being used to access the pig farm. There are other trailers and pieces of equipment being stored in this area that also requires the use of this road. I don't know if they're used for the pig farming operation or not. The lot directly beside this property for sale was zoned for commercial / business. The lot across from the property on 903 is the Lake Country Building Supplies and is also a business and commercial property. In conclusion, this area is not currently zoned for agricultural purposes and swine and shouldn't be allowed to be raised and sold at this residence. Furthermore, even if it was zoned for agricultural purposes, it still would not meet the requirements outlined in the agricultural low density document. Additionally, I'd like for the other points that were raised to be considered in opposing rezoning this property for agricultural purposes and ask that the current pigs be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. My name is Chad Barber, and I live at 372 Starboard Drive in Bracy. I'm across the street and down just a little bit from Mr. Parrish's house. I guess the first thing is we've been through this with the Planning Commission, which denied the right to be able to rezone. I know they have an appeal right, which I respect. So that's why we're here today. I think one of the biggest things is this is a private road, and they are using a private road with no deeded easement or rights to use that road to access this pig farm, which is a concern. We've got almost a mile of road that our homeowners association has to maintain. It's an expensive proposition, and so we all pay dues for that to be able to repair the road and upkeep the road. And Mr. Parrish doesn't, they just simply don't have the right to use it. The other thing is, I believe in the Planning Commission meeting, the lady that spoke mentioned that they were selling the hogs, which is a commercial enterprise. So even if you rezoned this to agricultural, they can't participate in commercial sale without a special exception permit, which is a whole nother thing. She mentioned that they're pets, but I believe in the Planning Commission hearing, she mentioned that they were selling them. Also, this area is very, a lot of houses in Portside rent to guest vacationers at Lake Gaston. People walk this road all the time. I live on, I'm in and out of that road a dozen times a day. There's a lot of traffic with walking and pedestrians, people exercising, and just the smell and the sight of this is not the best. So I would request that you deny the rezoning, and we would like to have the pigs removed because I believe it is currently in violation of the residential zoning. And as a side note, I just want to congratulate the board on the new school, and I watched live streamed it the other day, and congratulations to the county on a magnificent achievement.
Thank you. Next, anyone?
I'm Rick Cutler, work with the Point Realty Group, and we've got the adjacent lot listed for sale. It is zoned residential or business. This particular house originally was a model home. It was also zoned business. The bank took it back. It got sold as a residence. It's been rezoned once to residential. Now they want to rezone it again to agricultural. It's just not a good thing. It's spot zoning in the blatant form, and I don't think we need it, and we're against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one, I declare the public hearing to be closed. Board members, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion due to the Planning Commission's study of it and the obvious, it doesn't comply with the board's, the Planning Commission's decision. What I'd like to do is deny this application for this.
All right, we have a motion to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation and deny the application. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the application is denied. Thank you. Mr. Gottschalk, Mecklenburg County Decennial.
Hopefully, Mr. Chair, this is the last action that the board needs to take on this matter. Today, although there's 2 items listed under D of the agenda, they're all in one action, so we're only going to need to do 1 vote that will accomplish both aspects. The first part will be to adopt the maps themselves. This action, there's several whereas stipulations preceding the ordinance. Those are indicating the timeline that we followed in this procedure, and also declares that it's the board's policy that this complies with the legal decision from 1989. The actual ordinance itself enacts the maps, and it also has clauses that declare that all the members will remain in their seats through the 2023 election, and that a copy of the ordinance will be distributed to multiple parties, as well as the fact that all of the November elections 2022 will be run off of the polling places and precincts that existed as of, well, this moment, since you haven't enacted this ordinance yet. So it will have absolutely no change to any of the town elections. It will not impact the towns whatsoever. It will not impact the special election for the vacant seat on the school board. So that's all the actual ordinance to enact the maps does. Later on in the packet on page 17, there's also amendments to Article 2 of Chapter 30 of the Mecklenburg Code of Ordinances. Based on my review of the Code of Ordinances, it appears that they were enacted in 1990, and then subsequently all redistricting ordinances, so in 2001 and 2011, all they did was repeal the pertinent sections that were changed from 1990 with the new updated information. So that would be polling places, election district boundaries. Needless to say, there's a lot of text from 1990 that is no longer relevant and or has been superseded by enactments of the General Assembly in the intervening years. So this action pretty much modernizes the language from 1990 to 2022. There's some reorganization involved. There's updated code set references, but there's not much substantive changes other than to set out our new polling places and to incorporate some changes with respect to how the precinct and district boundaries are written. In other words, to codify the practice that was done in 2000 and 2010 to enact them through a separate ordinance and say you don't have to list out all of the boundaries in the actual ordinance that goes into our Code of Ordinances. So there's not a whole lot of change in this section other than a lot of technical amendments. And that's what the package in front of you does. Most of the 21 pages is electoral boundary descriptions, which was very repetitive to write and I'm sure to read as well.
All right, anybody got any questions about it? So the action we need to take is we need to adopt this ordinance.
Yes, and adopting the ordinance will enact both parts of it.
So the, okay, so we don't need to do anything, I mean, that'll take care of item 2 as well.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
You just need one roll call vote, yes.
Okay. And it has to be roll call.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions of Alex, but all of this?
Thank you for all your work on it.
Yeah.
Well, we still have considerable work to go because now we're going to have to prepare an application package to the Office of the Attorney General, which is going to be far more extensive than this 21 pages. And hopefully they find no fault with it and we get smooth sailing from there.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I need a motion then that we adopt the ordinance of the electoral district maps.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we adopt the ordinance, the redistricting map and ordinances within the dial changes to be received for Mecklenburg County.
Okay. You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say, oh, that's right, roll call. I'm sorry, Jenny.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Hargrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Spain?
Yes.
Mr. Barber?
Yes. All right, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, Clarksville Elementary financing. Who do we have, Mr. Carter, here to?
We have Ben Wills, our legal counsel, bond attorney. We also have Ted Cole, Davenport, and they make a presentation. Alice and I have been in discussions with them over the last couple weeks. And I think Sam is also here with
Yeah, my colleague Sam Stewart as well. This is what was in the agenda.
Yeah, if anybody wants a
Hard copies coming around. Good morning. I'm
Morning.
Ted Cole with Davenport. Following up on what's coming around should be exactly what was in your agenda packet. I'll wait for it to make its way, but following up on the meeting where we presented on July 11th, where we were discussing with you all the plan of finance for this school, we were going to dual track this between a bank financing and the Virginia Public School Authority. And we sort of followed through on that, and we received bank proposals on July 21st. So today, what I want to do is kind of walk through those proposals, a comparison between the bank financing and the VPSA program, answer any questions y'all have. There is a resolution for you all to consider today. That would be, if you choose to move forward with it, would be your one and only action. We'll talk a little bit about this time schedule and the other actions needed. So if you're following along, there's page numbers in the lower right corner. Page 2 just recaps what I just explained. A dual track approach for this school. We're talking about borrowing $25 million at this stage. If there is a need to come back for additional borrowing in the future, we have the ability to do that. You may not need to, depending on the bid price and other resources that the county might be able to dedicate to the project. With the RFP, we sent it out to a standard list that we have that has a number of banks locally, regionally, and nationally. We received 3 proposals. Capital One Public Funding, First Bank and Trust, and Truist Bank. We had conversations with a number of other lenders, but ultimately those were the 3 that we received. And keep in mind, VPSA is still an option if we decide we wanted to go that way. So if you turn to page 3, just a high-level summary of the 3 proposals from the banks. All of these bid pretty regularly on proposals, so they may not all be household names, but you can see the 3 banks, the interest rates. Clearly, Truist had the most attractive interest rate. This would be fixed for 20 years at a 3.39%. That's a tax-exempt rate, which is how you all would normally borrow for a school financing, a 3.39. And I'm going to focus on Truist because ultimately that's where we're headed in terms of a recommendation. You have the ability to prepay this loan. If you were to close it with Truist, you have the ability to prepay it or refund it in whole, so in whole, not in part, at any time. And for the first half of the loan, 10 years, there would be a 1% penalty to prepay it. And for the second half of the loan, there would be no penalty to prepay it. So you'll see when we compare it to VPSA, those prepayment terms and conditions are a little different from bank to bank and between the bank and VPSA. But ultimately, Truist had the most attractive proposal from an interest rate. It's fixed. They had very minimal requirements on real estate. Keep in mind, if we were to do this through a bank, we would need to include the IDA, and there is an IDA meeting scheduled for Thursday morning if things move forward here today. And the loan is going to be secured by a leasehold interest in the school. Essentially, I'm going to call it a mortgage, but Ben Wills is here if you want to understand what the leasehold interest is. But for layman's terms, consider it a mortgage on the school that you all will be building. The annual debt service will be for you all and future boards to appropriate every year through the budget process. It is not a general obligation of the county that's backed by your full faith and credit, your taxing power. It is an appropriation every year for debt service secured by the lien on the building. Very common structure for issuing debt in the Commonwealth. So that's a little bit about the bank proposals we received. And stop me along the way if you have any questions. When you turn to page 4, we've done sort of go back one more. There we go. A side-by-side comparison of the Truist Bank proposal and the Virginia Public School Authority. I think the key discussion point about which way is best, what ultimately do y'all want to do, one of the key points is with the Virginia Public School Authority,
they are still about 70 days away from being able to lock in their interest rate. That is expected to occur on or about October 18th. So when we look at numbers for the VPSA program, we're estimating them. I think they're good estimates. We can estimate them pretty accurately in any given day, but they're estimates. So as of August 2nd, the VPSA rate was a 3.16. That's on the same amortization, the same term as what you would do with Truist. As of Friday, that 3.16 moved up to a 3.23. We've seen a lot of volatility in the interest rate environment, up and down. Don't know what it's going to do over the course of the next 70 or so days before VPSA would price their bonds, but I think that's one of the key considerations for y'all. We're sitting here, we've got a locked-in proposal from Truist, locked for the full term at a 339. We have VPSA, which is a good option, but we're 70-plus days away from being able to lock that rate. And that's ultimately what I think is going to get to the decision about moving forward with Truist or not. With VPSA, you can't prepay the loan for the first 10 years, but after 10 years, you can prepay it in whole or in part with no penalty, so a slightly different prepayment language. As I said, they both options would allow you to, when you close the loan, invest the money in a state program called Virginia SNAP, which is a good place to invest those bond monies as you're spending the money on the project. And the other main difference is with the bank, it's a lease secured by the building, whereas with VPSA, it's a general obligation of the county. So a little bit different there in terms of what the collateral is. The comparison on page 5, we've shown you a little bit of a progression. So column B as in boy is the Truist proposal. We received that on the 21st, and if you look at line 6, line 7, you'll see the rate, 3.39. That is what the bank offered. When you include a placeholder that we have for cost of issuance, you're a little bit higher, you're at a 345, but the 339 is what we call the TIC, the true interest cost that the bank proposed. We are funding $25 million of project funds. We've got a placeholder here of $150,000 cost of issuance. I don't think will be that high. It's just a placeholder that will get fine-tuned as we get closer to a closing. And you can see what the fiscal year debt service is in any given year out the 20 years. Payments start in the next fiscal year, fiscal 24, not the year we're in. And over the life of the loan, if it were never to be prepaid, it would be a total payback of $35.113 million, principal plus interest. And then we've shown you under C, D, and E just a progression of VPSA estimates from June 24th. And what you'll see back on June 24th is VPSA payments were higher. They were, over the life of the loan, down on line 44, they were estimated to be almost $500,000 higher than Truist. And that very bottom cell in green says 15 basis points. What that means is how much market movement would it take for VPSA to equal the bank? And if rates reduced by what we call 15 basis points or 0.15%, the two would have been matched. We then look at where was VPSA on July 21st. It was basically break even to Truist, right? So Truist is locked in here. VPSA is moving with the market. And the market is moving every day, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, based on, as you would expect, a lot of different things. What the Fed is doing, what inflation is doing, external events, world affairs. I mean, any number of things that are going on seem to be moving the market. So on July 21, we were basically break even. On August 2nd, the markets had come down, rates had come down, and what we saw at that point was that VPSA would have been better by almost $930,000 over the life of the loan. And then, as I said, on Friday, VPSA was at about a 3.23%. The total payback was 34.4, so it was about $700,000, give or take, better than Truist. And the crux of the decision is in that green box. VPSA will not lock their rates until what they're saying would be mid-October. And so we would be floating, like everybody else that's going to pursue VPSA, we would be floating with the market until that time. So that's the current market comparison. A recommendation at the top of page 6, having talked through it a couple of different times with staff and various legal counsels, is to move forward with Truist. Bird in the hand kind of approach here, that we've got a rate. We believe it's a good rate. It's on a historical basis. It's a very attractive rate for 20 years. Hindsight will be 2020 at the end of October. What would have been the best thing to do? But with the volatility we're seeing, we think we feel very comfortable saying that the VPSA rates are going to change. I just don't know, are they going to be higher, lower, and to what extent? And I wish we had better guidance on that, but it's just not comfortable being able to tell you where VPS rates are going to be in October. So what you've got before you is, if you want to move forward with the bank funding, we have a resolution for you all to consider today. If that were to be approved, the IDA meets Thursday morning. They would have to take action on a resolution. It basically memorializes the structure, and it talks about the lien on the school, the leasehold interest on the school for the life of the loan. And then on August 15th, the school board would need to meet because they have to approve this, because we are going to secure the asset for the loan. So there would be 3 approvals: county board today, IDA on Thursday, school board on the 15th. If all of that were to happen, we should have everything buttoned up and be able to close, fund the loan on or before the bank deadline of September 1st. We've got a placeholder there for a special county board meeting if necessary. I don't think that should be necessary, but just in case something needs to be revisited, that may be necessary or may be requested. That's the extent of what we wanted to present. I don't know if there's any questions, thoughts, anything you all would want to
The
add.
Truist rate is good through when?
End of September, well, end of this month.
End of this month.
They want us to close by September 1.
And that was actually what we put out in the discussion proposal that we would. I think Ben's here, if you want to, Ben discuss the collateral and what we'll be doing on that. He's our legal counsel on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to go over the proposed resolution as well, or like that. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm Ben Wills. I'm an attorney with Kaufman & Knowles. We serve as the county's bond counsel, and before you today is a resolution authorizing the lease financing through the IDA that Davenport just discussed. It would be to finance the demolition of the Clarksville Elementary School property, and then the acquisition, design, and construction of a new elementary school, along with the costs of the financing. As Mr. Cole mentioned, Davenport has solicited bids, and this resolution recommends that the IDA award its bond to Truist Bank. In your agenda packets today, you have 2 documents. I think it's item E2. There's a prime lease and then a bond purchase and lease agreement. The prime lease is the underlying lease document whereby the county and the school board would lease the school property to the IDA, and then the bond purchase and lease agreement is the lease back, where the IDA would lease the property back to the school board and to the county. The bond purchase and lease agreement also is the document through which the IDA would issue its bond that would be purchased by Truist. Truist would pay the purchase price of that bond, and then that would go to the county and the school board to finance the project. The county would be agreeing under that document, subject to appropriation, to make certain rent payments that are effectively the same as the debt service payments on the bond. They would go to the IDA assigns them to Truist. So effectively, the county would be paying the debt off on the bond. Now, as mentioned, importantly, that payment obligation is subject to appropriation. As Mr. Cole mentioned, it does not implicate the faith and credit of the county in any way, does not implicate the taxing power of the county. I'd like to go through very quickly a couple of the more specific parameters for the bond that are in the resolution. The maximum principal amount of the bond is $25,200,000. The maximum expiration date for the prime lease, which is the underlying lease, is December 31st, 2047. And then the expiration for the bond purchase and lease agreement is 5 years earlier, December 31st, 2042, which is also the upper end for the maturity of the bond. The bond would carry a maximum interest rate of 3.39%, except in the limited circumstances where there was a determination of taxability, in which case the rate would go to 4.31%. Mr. Cole mentioned that the bond is subject to redemption prior to its maturity in whole only. For the first half of the bond's term, there's a 1% prepayment penalty, and then it's redeemable at par for the second half of the term. Finally, the bond cannot be sold for less than 100% of its maximum aggregate value to Truist, so it can't be sold for a discount, so you're getting all the money that you need. Looking at just a couple other provisions that I think we should highlight in the resolution, provides the county administrator authority and other appropriate county officials to execute documents, make certain changes as appropriate and not inconsistent with this resolution. The county also agrees not to take any action or omit to take any action that would lead to the bond being considered a hedge bond under the federal tax rules, nor to take any action that would jeopardize the tax-exempt status on the bond. As mentioned earlier, if the bond does become taxable, that comes with an increase in the rate. The resolution also authorizes the county's participation in the State Non-Arbitrage Program, or SNAP, which is a state-run program for handling tax-exempt proceeds for localities and political subdivisions, make sure they comply with applicable rules. And it also provides for the reimbursement of certain expenses incurred by the county or the school board or the IDA that are related to the financing. So with that, we appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all. And any questions on the resolution or the form documents, or for Davenport or myself, we're happy to address them.
Ben, the motion for action, do we need two separate motions, one for the resolution and one for the request to the IDA?
I think we've got it all built into one resolution.
Okay.
We would ask that the board do a roll call vote to approve the resolution, but we should have it all packaged into one.
Anybody got any questions of Davenport, these gentlemen?
I think the interest rates that we do know are very uncertain, and anything under almost 5% is sounding good. We think it's sounding now, it could be 8% after a while. You just don't know.
God forbid.
And I would just add a couple of things. That one lease that Ben mentioned goes out 5 extra years. That's only to allow the bank to recoup their funding if there were a non-appropriation. So that is just to give them a little more time if there were a non-appropriation. If everything gets paid every single year, the whole thing is undone in 20 years.
Automatically would terminate, right?
So that's just a provision to give them a little extra time if something did get off track. And then the taxable rate, the only thing that would trigger that is if the county or the schools did something actively to make it a taxable loan or didn't take action. And it's very similar to what you would have with the VPSA anyhow. So those were two things I just want to clarify, that they're not going to extend the lien on the loan or on the facility as long as everything is paid as it should be.
Right.
And the taxability, you really control that by your action or inaction, and we wouldn't expect that to be an issue. But with any tax-exempt borrowing, there is always the chance that something is done and you've got to revisit the tax-exempt eligibility.
The county would also enter into a tax compliance agreement as part of this transaction, which would outline in detail all of the covenants that would need to be complied with, just to ensure we don't ever have to cross that line.
Does staff have any comments?
Well, we've reviewed the proposals. We think it's in the best interest of the board to go ahead and move with the Truist at 3.39. There's too much volatility in the market. You're looking at least one more increase in September by the Fed. As we've discussed, it's anything can happen in the world, and your interest rates could go up a point, and you're the other way. 3.39 is a very good rate. We think if we were looking at either one of the other two, we probably would be waiting on BPSA. But at this rate, we're definitely recommending that you go with Truist at this time.
All right. Any other questions?
Speaking from experience of over a lifetime, these rates are ridiculously low.
Mhm.
You know, and so not take advantage of them now because there's always an upward trend. I mean, I don't see it going back personally.
Right, and Alex has looked at a lot of the numbers, especially with regards to what's coming out with the bills that were signed on Friday and what the governor's office and the General Assembly has done. We hope that we'll be able to get several million more dollars for the project, and this might be the only borrowing we have to have. We'll see if the other will be a small borrowing, based upon what the General Assembly did. Would you agree, Alex?
Huge step forward.
Yeah, I do agree with that. There's the school construction assistance program is a $450 million pot. That will be a competitive application. We'd be eligible for potentially up to 20% of the project cost based on our fiscal index, which if it's a $40 million project could potentially be up to $8 million. Obviously, we can demonstrate a lot of the factors that they're looking for. We have a strong commitment to this project as evidenced by going forward with this resolution and borrowing the money already. It shows that we are firmly in favor of doing the project. We'll be on a time frame where they could use the funds immediately instead of one of these projects that's going to take 4 or 5 years. We've got a timeline spelled out based on our bid responses on the PPEA side, and we have an obvious facility need. So I do think we would have a competitive solicitation. We'll definitely intend to go forward and try our best to obtain several million dollars, whether it's 4, whether it's 8, whether it's something in between. But between that and some of the other sources we have in hand, plus the $25 million, we would be able to just about hit the total project cost, which would be a very fortunate circumstance should that occur.
All right. Any other?
One other thing, Paul, we have received proposals on the school.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make the board aware that the school board is moving forward. We have already agreed with the PPEA process. We've had bids go out for companies that would work with us on it. We got 2 bids that came back in good timing. We are having more conversation with them, and we have a schedule for moving forward that would be in keeping with all of this. So we're looking forward to the whole thing is it would move forward because we have quite a bit of work that needs to be done.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments this time? All right, if not, we need a motion to adopt a resolution to accept the bank loan proposal, and which also includes a request for IDA approval of the loan.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve this proposal and for the IDA for the elementary school.
All right, you've heard that motion in discussion. You said you need a roll call, right? Yeah. Jenny?
Mr. Brinkley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Hargrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Spain?
Yes.
Mr. Barber?
Yes. Okay. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I guess this project is just too big for our local banks to get involved with, huh? I mean,
Oftentimes, we'll see that they have internal guidelines that they can only lend up to a certain amount per borrower. We do offer in our RFP if multiple banks would like to get together and submit a joint proposal. We don't see that very often, but from time to time. So that is a way for a smaller bank to be involved, but none of those came in this time.
okay. All right. All right, thank you, folks. Next is our public comments.
The 2 people who signed up or have left, they talked on the other one, which was rezoning Chad Barber and Rick Cutler. So we have no comments, sir.
All right, no public comments.
Yes,
All
sir.
Okay, VDOT update. Kevin?
Good morning.
Morning.
Y'all should have got our board report in y'all's package. A few things I want to update. I always like giving a real rustic update. Route 669 Stanton River Road, crews are in there now pulling ditches. 793 Reese's dead end. Ditches are pulled, base stone is down, and weather permitting, they should be shooting next week to put the first coat of tar and gravel on there. Route 680 Sweetwater, ditches are pulled, and should be installing the base stone in this month. So all these projects are moving forward. I don't see no reason why these are not going to be completed by the fall of the year like scheduled. Couple other notes, Route 58 and 15 Business Bridge going into Clarksville. That will be closed this week. From 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. is what the press release has got. The town of Clarksville is doing a water pump repair out there on that dike, and they need to get it closed off during the daylight hours. That's scheduled for all week. Talking to Mr. Jones, I think he's talking about hoping to finish up by Wednesday, and that road be open back up. Route 660, the intermediate mix has been put down, shoulder stone's been added. The contractor had to pull off, but will return soon to place the topping back on the road, and the bridge approaches will be fixed then when they do that. Last thing I had, centerline rumble strips are going to start installing this month. I'm not sure if Mr. Carter shared that with y'all or not, but if y'all have been around to some of these other counties, if y'all have seen them on the primaries, Route 15, for example, going to Farmville. This year, Phase 1 will include Route 92 and Route 49 in Mecklenburg. 15 is part of it if the contractor can squeeze it in his schedule. If not, 15 will go down to next year on Phase 2, along with Route 1, Route 58, Route 47, and Route 138 for next year. That's all I've got. And if y'all got any questions?
Anybody got any questions?
Sir.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Nichols, you want to talk to us about the new school?
Thank you again. Let me. So this month's presentation will be a little bit different than what we've had before. Obviously, from Friday, as all of you know, we began moving into the building. It's substantial completion. So I just want to review a little bit of that for the benefit of the public watching, and then talk about how we will be moving into the facility. So first of all, we had our flag raising ribbon cutting ceremony on August the 5th. This is the American flag that was put up there. You will have noticed as you were there that it was an 80-foot pole on either side with 60-foot poles, and it has what I think is the biggest American flag in the county of Mecklenburg, a 25 by 15-foot flag that we put up there in conjunction with the VFW and others that have been a big part of that. So we were excited about that. We also had the ribbon cutting celebration, and this is the picture. I think all of you were a part of that, as well as representatives from the General Assembly, the governor, the Secretary of Education, the school board, and we had some of our students that were involved as well. It was limited. We had to say, because we don't have the complete certificate of occupancy, that it was not something that was open to the public, and we're sorry for that, but we will be making up for it, and I'll be mentioning that earlier. But it was an exciting time, and I certainly appreciate all of your participation in it, something we will remember for many years. What I do want to point out to you is that there was more than simply the flag raising and the ribbon cutting that was going on that day as the governor came down And the other components were very exciting for us as well. Of course, the governor did join us for the ceremony. We had asked him about this way back in the earlier parts of the year, and getting it on his calendar meant that that doesn't change very easily. So we wanted to comply with his calendar on things. The overall program that he came down for was not just for the external opening of the facility, but again, talking a great deal about what goes on inside. And you know, we have been focusing on the Career Academy component. We stated from the very beginning that we needed to have one facility as opposed to separate East and West End facilities, because we need to really have our students focusing on preparing for jobs and careers, not just passing SOL tests in Virginia and getting a high school diploma. And that process has been building just as the school has been building. And as it just really works out so well with this governor's focus, which has been far different from previous governors. This governor has also been focused on the whole idea of career literacy, career awareness, making sure that communities have the ability to determine what is the need for their higher education system. And so he, in addition to school construction funding, has been focusing on what he's called the lab school programs. And we had the opportunity to invite the Secretary of Education down back in the end of March with the State Superintendent's Office, discuss our connectivity, partnership with the community college, with the Higher Ed Center in South Boston, and with IALR, with the GoTech program that we have for career exploration for our middle school children, and then the workforce development that we've already started. And you see the picture here, the governor speaking with one. He actually spoke with many of our children, our students, who have had the opportunity to earn credentials in such areas as HVAC, welding, electricity, even with the Sheriff's Department for criminal justice, and they've all been extremely exciting. We have students that are leaving high school, walking right into very good paying jobs in areas that are critical for economic development for our community. This is just one student who graduated with significant credentials in electronics and has gone to work. He and his family were discussing with the governor just what that means to them. He's walking into a job that's paying and continuing to train him, and he'll have a great job moving forward. So that was very good. The picture that I don't have is as we had a roundtable discussion about how we will move forward on that, particularly with the new school, but with the partnerships, and possibly be one of the first lab schools identified. I had hoped we might be able to do that, have that announced during this visit, but in all reality, it took a long time for the General Assembly to get that concept passed. There were quite a few in the General Assembly who felt like it was sort of a charter school concept with a different dressing on it, so it didn't look the same. But it is very different from the idea of charter schools. It just gives us greater opportunity to make sure that our students are seamlessly prepared to go from earning credentials, having career literacy at the high school, but being able to move directly into the community college with just directly to get the further training that they may need as we move forward. So that was very exciting. We are looking forward to working with SVCC and the others and being able to get that process in place. He also, as you know, signed 3 very important bills that add school construction funding to the state budget. Altogether, among the 3 bills, it's well over $1 billion that will be helpful throughout the state. And as you heard the governor say, that component, plus our focus on school safety, in a day when there are such things as school shooting, unfortunately, this building has been specifically set aside with some first-in-the-nation types of opportunities that we will be continuing to work with and get a lot of attention from, as well as the opportunity to build it for the community, for tourism, and for so many types of things to work with, and we're very excited about that. So overall, that was very successful. I know a lot of questions are there about staff returning to school. Our staff will begin returning to school on August the 22nd. We have had many conversations with Skanska and with Cleveland about all of the necessary permits being in place so that they could come in. Everybody is determined that we should have those in place even by the end of this week. So we're excited about that. I will mention that that was substantial completion. There will be work that we will be doing on the facility for a while, but it will not interfere with our instructional programs as we have them currently set to move forward. We will have our convocation for the new year. That's going to be at the end of our 2 weeks of time for teachers to be preparing and having the extra options they have for moving in and so forth. So convocation will be on the last day before students will begin doing some touring and so forth. That will be on Friday, September the 9th at 1 o'clock. We have a great speaker coming in, and we would invite you to come and join us if you'd be interested in that. We're also looking at students and when they will be coming back. Of course, parents and students are very anxious to be able to do touring as well. So the 6th grade and senior classes will be available to come in with parents between 5 and 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 6th. The 7th grade and the junior class students will be able to come in on Wednesday, September the 7th at that same time frame. 8th grade and sophomore classes on Thursday, September the 8th. At that same time, and then the freshman class, which is the 9th grade, on Friday, September the 9th. And then students will all begin coming back, elementary and the secondary students, for their regular schedules on Monday, September the 12th. And that is fully expected. We are also planning to have tours for the public because I know many people in the public have been anxious to come in. Our goal is, and we believe we'll be able to meet it on Saturday, August the 20th. However, as we had originally planned to have some special programs, movie, concerts, and so forth, we're not sure we're going to be ready to have it on that date, but as soon as we're able to get that auditorium complete, we will begin having some special opportunities for people to be able to enjoy it. So those are our goals. That's what we feel like we're good with, and I appreciate everybody coming, and I'm ready to answer questions that anybody might have.
Any questions?
Paul, I know we've kind of got delayed a little bit on some of the construction and all, and it looks like maybe even after we kind of open up, and maybe some going. Is it any penalty clauses or anything in that contract that Cleveland would have to come up with or anything?
There are some clauses that are there. It's a discussion that we will be having with them. There'll be discussions as well with the architectural firm on some issues that we feel may be there. But there have been some delays that Cleveland has had that they have no control over, particularly delays in shipments at the end. And we mentioned when we went on the tour, one of the delays that's a big one, but it will not have an impact on our instructional, is some of the items in the auditorium, seating and things of that nature. Fortunately, you know, that's been something that will be of huge benefit to the school, but was particularly planned for the community use. And again, it will not delay in instruction in any type of way. We think, based on schedules that we have been given about that, we are hopeful that our convocation may even be available to be held in the auditorium. So you're always hopeful until something doesn't work out. And there will be many smaller things through the fall that we know we'll have to go back and look at and rectify issues or, you know, work on things. So we're not completely done, but we're substantially done. And then you remember back, I think in March, I said we are now looking at a substantial completion days.
All right, thank you.
When was the first football game?
First football game will be September the 2nd, and we feel very comfortable that we're going to be on target for that. Okay, and it will be, I know there's been a lot of rumors that it would be at Parkview. No, it will be on the new field. Yes. The last things that have to be put in place, the last big thing is completing the bleachers on the home side, and daily they're making great progress with that.
Okay.
Paul's numbers and all good for come out for sports and all. I know some of them are traveling. Football is at Parkview and all of that. Numbers good?
You mean the numbers of participants in the sports activities? Yes, sir.
Right, good.
We've got some building to do. When you look overall, just as an example of some of the other schools that will be in our district, they may have more players right now than we have because it takes a little bit of adjustment to get the players used to types of things. But right now, as an example for football, we have enough for a regular and JV teams, and that's going to be important for us.
What will be the anticipated student population?
Well, that's one of my biggest focus of attention right now, because obviously the budget on everything is ADM is a huge part of the budget. And as you've heard me say before, last year, first year back to school, not quite done with COVID, still a lot of parents out there that were concerned about safety and so forth. We were down about between 250 and 300 students on what we had calculated for ADM. We've looked for all those students. We've had conversations with many of them. We hope we're going to get them back, but we don't know for sure what that's going to look like. So we're being cautious until we get those first numbers back. But when we planned all of this, we were anticipating 1,100 students at the middle school and 1,300 students at the high school. We built for 1,300 at the middle school and 1,500 at the high school, so we wouldn't have to immediately start putting in trailers. So we're down. I'm still hoping that we'll have close to 1,100 at the middle school and 1,300 at the high school.
Are there any issues with the buses and bus drivers? I know a lot of them are doing double duty, doing elementary school and
This
the high
year,
school.
we will have to continue having the secondary schools start earlier and having some of the buses, most of the buses going back to get the second route for the elementary schools. We're still down drivers. And that's across everywhere. Drivers, teachers, we have probably we don't have all of our teachers yet, but we have ways of covering for all of them. And we're having a substantial part of our plans and conversation with the governor was, what do we need to do to be able to help us with licensure issues, work with some of our own, build our own teaching pool, and get more of the CTE teachers in for our classes when they could work for business from far more money than, when you take into consideration welders are now making $100,000 a year plus, it's hard to find welding teachers. So that's just one example of what we're facing, and he's going to work with us on that.
Ms. Lund, did you have a question?
That was my question he answered. I was asking, did he have all the teachers in place? You answered the question.
We're continuing to work on it. We don't yet have all of them quite in place, but we have coverage for all the classes.
You have enough counselors also?
We do have our counselors.
Okay. Social worker, at least one? Do you have that?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any social workers at your school?
We have.
At
we
our
do.
school?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And we have been able to work with Southside Mental Health to provide some additional support for mental health issues.
Any other questions?
Are you pleased with the progress of security with the sheriff making an announcement this morning and what you see down the road?
I am thrilled to death with that opportunity, and I can't say enough about the way that Sheriff Hawkins has made himself available to work with us, state police, the local police. We've got some firm plans in place. I'm also very excited to let you know, and I'm a little cautious because I don't want anybody to test all of this, but I would say the security that we have built into the new school and that we'll be focusing on with the elementary schools is the very latest that is available, and that we will have the most secure schools in the state at this point.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Budget and Finance Report, Mr. Spain.
Hope you had a copy of the report. The Budget and Finance Committee met on Monday, August 8, 2022, at 8:30 a.m. at the Board of Supervisors meeting room. Member President, Glanson Spain Chair, David Brankley, Jim Jennings, Charles Jones, and Sterling Wilkerson. Also present, Glenn Barber, Claudia London, and Hargrove, Tom Towner, Wayne Carter, County Administrator, Judy Shutfield, Assistant County Administrator, Alec Gottschalk, Deputy County Administrator, Bobby Sheriff, Bobby Hawkins, Major Ann Ezell, Stanford Langford, the Treasurer. The Chairman called the meeting to order. The school board is requesting a follow budget transfer and a supplemental appropriation in the FY '23 budget. One, transportation, $120,000. Technology, $13,000. Administration, $30,000. And structure, $246,641. Food service, $200,000. The school board requesting the following budget transfer and supplemental appropriation in the FY '22 budget. New school fund of $2,439.56. On the motion, Mr. Brankley, the committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the supplemental appropriation for the school FY '23. And those amounts that are read to you, they were $609,641 for the appropriation. That's my motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, you've heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Upon a motion, Mr. Jennings, the committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the supplemental appropriation for the school FY '22 budget. And for the new school, they added $2,439.56. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion for appropriation.
You heard that motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Next, Mr. Carter discussed a request for a supplemental appropriation for the library budget due to them spending $5,439.51 over their appropriate amount. The fund went toward a book return for the board and library. Upon the motion of Mr. Wilkerson, the committee voted unanimously to approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $5,439.51 to the library FY '22 budget. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put that in the form of a motion for appropriation.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And last, Sheriff Hawkins will present and advise the committee that he also applied for additional school resource officer grant position, and they all have been awarded 4 new positions. They will be filled later this year. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Jones, Economic Development.
Yes, the Economic Development Committee met on Monday, August 8, 2022 at 8:45 in the Board of Supervisors meeting room, Borden, Virginia. Members present, Charles Jones, Chairman, Clancy Spain, Jim Jennings, Tom Tanner. Others present, Glenn Barber, David Brankley, Claudia Lundy, Sterling Wilkerson, Andy Hargrove, Alex Gottschalk, Deputy County Administrator, Angie Kelly, Economic Development Director. Chairman called the meeting to order. Mr. Carter reviewed the bids received from the Hillcrest Campus Water Supply Contract C Booster Station. 3 bids were received. The lowest bid received was from Waco Incorporated at a cost of $2,973,000. On a motion by Mr. Tanner, the committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the bid received from Waco for the Hillcrest Campus Water Supply Contract Sea Booster Station at a cost of $2,973,000 being, I'd like to put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you've heard that motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
No other business. Meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Carter.
All right, I'll do the first five and Alex has the last one. You have building permits. I'm happy to say they are continuing to hold. The only reduction we've seen is in the additions and alterations category, but building permits are holding. Again, zoning permits are up, especially with the ENS plans. You have the animal warden's report. You have the sheriff's report. If you have any questions, sheriff's office answered over 2,850 calls. You have also their tickets. I'm happy to see this time there were none for failure to move over for emergency services vehicles. It's probably one of the few times we haven't had one of those on here. If you have any questions on that. Hearing none, you next have a support letter that we are asking that you approve. We are going to be applying with Brunswick and Halifax counties with the Southside Planning District for another VATI grant to try to fill in some of the holes that were left on the last one. The requirements have changed this time, so some of the areas that had previous grant approvals, we can now go back in and try to fill those with Empower. So we would like for y'all to approve this letter of support for the project. We do not have the areas or the match or the quantities yet. They're not due till later this month, and Southside is working with Empower to come up with those areas and the total cost.
Okay. All right, any questions on this support letter we need to approve?
I'll make a motion we approve the support letter.
All right, we have a motion to adopt this support letter for the VATI grant. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Next, Alex is going to go over the new operating procedure.
Based on the experience during the pandemic, there was significant interest across the Commonwealth in electronic meetings and in participation in meetings through electronic means. This session of the General Assembly, there was a bill that was introduced based on a working group that had been convened by the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council and multiple stakeholders. And that bill, after some discussion and amendment, was enacted. It would authorize the participation of board members in meetings through electronic means. I want to be clear that does not mean an all-electronic meeting for the Board of Supervisors. It would mean that we would still have to have quorum physically present, but individual members could participate through electronic means. The bill also authorized that a board would have to enact a policy in order to use it, or use the authority to meet through individual participation in electronic means, and also that the policy would go into effect in September. Because September is approaching, we have prepared a policy for your review and approval, if you so wish, that would authorize individual members to participate through electronic means. In front of you, you have a policy, and I'm just going to go through and summarize each of the sections real briefly. It begins on page 10 of this item in Dropbox. And so section 1 is just the basic statutory authority from the General Assembly and the Code of Virginia. Section 2 is a policy statement that says the board would welcome such participation. Section 3 would say that you could participate through either phone or through video. Section 4 lays out the process of participation. This is essential to how the member would appear during the meeting. If by video, then The recommendation is that they would remain on video at all times unless that was a disruption to either this meeting or based on their location. If you're poolside on vacation, we'd probably have the video off, would be my recommendation. However, yeah, so, and one other thing is, if you're on the phone, then to state your name before your remarks. That's the big one through that means. Section 5 sets the limits through a general means. So the way the legislation reads is it is 2 meetings or 25% of your meetings, whichever is greater. Since there are 12 regularly scheduled meetings, the policy would set 3 as the maximum number. If there were more meetings, that after every 4th one, then another one would be authorized. The general participation could be for any meets. It could be if you're on vacation, if you're at a conference, any legitimate reason why you're not physically in this room. You could just even be home and you had an appointment that was in the middle of the meeting, so you wanted to go to the first hour, but you couldn't go to the second hour. All of those would be acceptable under this policy for general participation, which of course has its limits, and those must be mentioned why you are doing it though, and that has to be included in the minutes. Section 6 allows it for certain specific reasons that are authorized by the General Assembly, and those are for health problems, for if you're taking care of a family member who has a health problem, or, and this doesn't apply to us, if you live 60 miles away from the meeting location. But if that might apply if you're on some regional board. If you're on some regional boards, though, that policy could, if the regional board adopts this verbatim, then that could come into play in some of the groups that we are a member of. There are no limits to the number of meetings you could meet through those means. So if you had surgery en route for 3 months, then you could participate in 3 successive meetings this way. There's no limit to that. And they work independent of the limits in the previous section. The 7th section just states that a quorum has to be physically present unless there is a state of emergency condition where, nobody could make it here to this meeting. Section 8 informs notification. Because we need to ensure that a quorum is present, all requests need to happen preferably before the meeting. It would run through the chair, and the chair and the county administrator would coordinate that process. The benefit of the doubt is given to the member requesting it. So as long as there's a legitimate purpose that is stated for why they couldn't be present, it would be approved, and there's no other action needs to be taken. If the chair and or the county administrator don't believe that the reason given is legitimate, then it would be referred to the full board, and the full board would vote on whether or not the member could participate through remote means. And the section sets out the motion that would need to be made in order to approve or disapprove that participation. Section 9 sets that you could, if the meeting gets continued to another time, you could change the way you participate in the meeting. You could be physically present on one day and virtually on the next, or vice versa. You don't have to carry forward your same participation method, even though the meeting is technically still the same meeting. Section 10 governs closed meetings. Again, you can participate virtually in closed meetings depending on your surroundings, so be cognizant of them. If the public is close enough to you that the closed meeting would no longer be closed per se, then participation couldn't be made in closed meeting. Section 11 dictates that the reasons have to be included in the minutes, which is what the Code of Virginia states. Section 12 allows non-board members to participate virtually. Section 13 governs committees. Because our committees are infrequent and more limited, it would be a limit of 1 until there was such meetings that would authorize another one. I went back and reviewed for our meetings here in 2022, and the only one that would actually be more than one at this point, based on 25%, would be Budget and Finance. So most of the other committees are probably not going to be more than one anyway, if you did 25% of their meetings during a given year. 14 says this is effective in September, and so if adopted today, could be used at the next meeting. And Section 15 states that this is a continuing policy of the board, so it does not have to be enacted at the beginning of every new board, every new year, or after every new election. It would continue until such time as it is amended by a future board. And so that would be the policy as is currently drafted.
Any questions?
I got one for you. On Section 8, Item A, it says that wish to participate is you should notify the chairman as soon as practicable, but no later than noon the day of the board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Most hours are in the morning, so if we notify him by noon, we're gonna be a little late. Can we change that to noon the day before?
We can, noon the day before will be a Sunday, so we're probably not going
Okay,
to
well-
do that. But yes, I'll tweak that language in accordance with the meeting times, yes.
And the only other thing I had, do we have the technology set up for somebody to be able to video in? I know we can call in, but do we have the capability to be able to video in?
We can video in, but we can't video out.
Yeah, we have little squares at the Southside Planning District.
So what do we need to do to
participate.
fix that?
We can certainly look into it. I don't know that it will be immediately available.
Sure, but
yeah.
I'm just
But
saying
yes, a
that-
member can a member can hear us speak into these microphones, and a member could speak to us, but the video wouldn't be, except, on somebody's laptop at the end kind of deal.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be honest, I'm not crazy about this. We got elected to be here and come to these meetings. I think it creates a slight level of laziness and complacency, to be honest with you.
I do too.
Well, the closed meeting thing kind of concerns me a little bit. We're particular about our closed sessions and who has. And then the thing about the non-board members, I'm not sure I quite understand that when we have a public comment session, somebody can be sitting at home and video in their public comments?
Yes, they could.
You're doing good, just like we're going right now.
Mrs. Slavey?
Yeah, I just wanted to add this. What Alex has described is, I think, intended by the legislature to be a step forward. But the fact is, under Virginia law right now, there's a way that supervisors can participate remotely. This much better refines it. This is a reaction, I'm sure, to COVID. But much of what he said is already in place. Not much of it, but the general policy that now allows you folks to participate remotely is already the law. Okay, this is just a refinement of the law.
And I think we still need the flexibility to be able to do this. I get what Mr. Jennings is saying about, I understand we need to be here if at all possible, but I think maybe if we have some type of policy to allow if somebody is sick or injured or, has to be at home for a reason, they still want to feel that they're fulfilling their duties to this board.
We probably have all missed a meeting somewhere
sure.
along the way, and I think that's normal when you've got things that come up in your life that just won't let you come. But nobody abuses that. I've never seen anybody abuse that on this board. It may happen other places, but it hadn't happened here. Right.
But most of the time, those people wouldn't even tune in anyway. I mean, like when my wife was having cancer treatment,
Yeah.
I'm not
exactly.
involved in the meeting.
Exactly.
I'm
not crazy about this.
I think we need to be accountable to stand in front of these people and be seen live. And down the road, if something totally changes, maybe it's something we look at. But if this ain't something we got to do, I'm with Mr. Jennings.
But I think it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and don't have it.
I think that's what Alex was trying to do, give you all options.
And I would say too, for some of the committee meetings too, it may be a option for somebody to be able to Zoom in or call in for a committee meeting.
Right.
You know, as long as they have the quorum that necessary to do the committee meeting. I think, and that's part of what I think he was working towards too, was, you know, for somebody maybe at Mr. Hargrove not have to drive all the way over here from the other side of the lake, but, you know.
I feel like this pandemic has changed us forever concerning this opportunity. Mr. Jennings said none of us have abused the opportunity we have. I think it's something that we still should look at down the road. And something else, if, for example, if Mr. Sheriff Hogan wanted to detain me on the road to talk to me for a while and I can't make the meeting, then I cannot call in early. Should there be some emergency situation, Rod, that I have to call in and say, let me talk to you on my, on my phone?
If you get detained, we're all in trouble.
Or to be pulled over and say, I'm
Just think
sorry,
about
I'm at a
it.
meeting right now.
Just think, Mr. Wilkinson, you and Mr. Jennings can pull the back and be at the board. I have a suggestion. Why don't we table this and let the board kind of digest this a little bit?
That's a good
more?
idea.
If you've got any questions and recommendations, get with Alex on those, and maybe by next meeting, we can decide if we want to move forward or not. Is that?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I think that's fine.
All right.
That's a conservative approach. It's a good
Very
one.
good.
Yes.
That work for you, Al?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no pressure to have to enact anything today. It's just, the legislation went into effect and goes into effect in September, so that's.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Alan. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see here, what? All right, we've got some appointments we need to address this morning. The first one, term of Mr. Charles Jones, I think y'all know him, on the Lake Country Regional Airport Commission, expired June 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Move to reappoint Mr. Jones to the Airport Commission, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to reappoint Mr. Jones, whether he wants to or not, apparently. Motion to reappoint Mr. Jones. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. The term of Mr. Ricky Harris on the Industrial Development Authority expires August 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
I talked to him last night, and he's willing to serve another term.
Okay. So you're making a motion.
Yes, I'm making a motion that
All right, motion to reappoint Mr. Ricky Harris to the IDA. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Lindsay Carroll on the IDA has resigned. Her term expires on September the 30th. We had a potential candidate. Tom and I had discussed it, but we don't have a potential candidate at this moment. So we probably need to table this until we can do further. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
This is an important position. We need to find somebody by the next meeting.
Well, just like we were talking with the gentleman Davenport and them,
Yeah, they get ready to do a $25
They're
million
getting ready to go to IDA
deal.
next.
Right.
and,
All right, so,
having those
all right, so
members.
we'll table that until we can find, come up with a candidate. Oh, yeah, and the next is, the agricultural development, the 9 members. You have those people in your packet.
That was
So-
for informational purposes.
Is that
So
just
people would know.
informational?
I think y'all need to actually appoint them.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to vote on
Yes.
that? Okay, okay.
Y'all all submitted your different
Yeah, yeah,
applicants the last month, but they haven't actually appointed any of them to the
And
committee.
Taylor Clark is organizing a meeting with this group sometime in the next.
So you want to make a motion we appoint?
I will. I do make a motion that we appoint these appointees that were
We
recommended.
have a
by the
motion
board.
that we appoint these 9 individuals to agricultural development. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I had forgotten.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a record.
Okay, you have in your packet the consent calendar. As mentioned by Sandra, there may be some changes to that. Yeah, because we're closing out the year for the auditors, but we need a motion to accept what the consent calendar is presented.
Chairman, I motion we accept the consent calendar as it been presented.
You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, Mr. Slayton, I think.
Yes, sir. As you folks know, there's been concern about the concentration of solar facilities in the vicinity of Chase City. Staff has worked on a recommendation to make to you to give you an opportunity to address this if you think it's an issue. The policy is basically this. The intersection of routes 47 and 92 in Chase City is deemed the center of a circle. And around that circle would be, around that point would be drawn a circle with a 5-foot radius, 10-foot diameter. Within that area, it is believed now, this hasn't been done scientifically, but I think it's right, that would be located all three of the solar facilities within that circle, which have already been approved, and would also be located the two which are now under consideration, and I think they're Finneywood and Seven Bridges. If those two were approved and added to the three which have already been approved, that would approach 5% of the acreage within the circle. Statewide, there have been ceilings set on the concentration of solar, and in most cases it's countywide. But 5% has been, in my experience and to my knowledge, one of the higher percentages. So if you get 5% within this 5-mile radius, you'll have a pretty significant development around Chase City. The vehicle that's recommended to consider this issue is a comprehensive plan amendment, potentially, not a zoning ordinance amendment. As you folks know, the comp plan is advisory and offers guidance and lets the public know what your thoughts are. But unlike the zoning ordinance, it's not binding. So the point is, if you enact a change to the comp plan, an applicant could still apply. But that applicant would know through your comp plan amendment that you're not very much predisposed to more solar in the area. I think it would strike a balance for the county, would give you some control, but without the absolutism of zoning ordinances. So this zoning amendment, this resolution would refer from you back to the Planning Commission study of whether the concentration of solar around Chase City, assuming that these next two are approved, would be enough for that area. And if so, they'd make a recommendation to you, presumably, to amend your comprehensive plan to state that 5% ceiling is the limit you want on solar facilities within this area. And to repeat, the estimate now is that it's about 4.8% if the two pending get approved like the three approved have been. And there's a very significant last paragraph to this resolution, and that states that if this resolution is adopted, that the county is not going to accept solar applications within this 5-mile radius, 10-mile diameter, until the Planning Commission has completed its study, made its recommendation, the board has conducted its public hearings, and taken action, if any, so that you get the study period with no more applications coming in. The applications, there are two reasons for that. One is the application itself imposes a burden on the county, and if you're heading in a direction of limiting it to 5%, assuming these two get approved, then that wouldn't be helpful. And also, we're told repeatedly by applicants how expensive and labor-intensive it is for them to apply. We're telling them up front, you can't apply until we finish this. We're not going to subject you to that extent, that expense and all that effort. So if the board adopts this resolution, it would accomplish what I just described. But if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Couple questions that I have. One, do we actually have a map of this area that we can look at to see?
We do not, but we will generate one if you act favorably.
And I think we need, as a board, need to see the actual circle to see what it's going to encompass.
We will.
So we would know that. And I know what we're headed towards with this to try to responsibly do solar. Is this something we need to look at as a percentage for the whole county?
That was discussed. The board's direction to staff was to do what we've done.
Right.
And when you refer this to the planning commission, you know, they can initiate their own thoughts and recommendations. So you're not putting a lid on them, but you're telling them what's of interest to you right now in the area of Chase City. That doesn't limit what you or the planning commission does, Mr. Tanner, in the future.
Sure. And I noticed it also said that the board is aware that the current applications pending would be subject to this proposed change. So they would fall under this.
Yeah, you caught a good point. That's not generally understood perhaps on a local government level, but it is true. There are no vested rights. If someone submits an application, they do not acquire vested rights to go from that point forward on what you have in place. Instead, they're subject to changes you make to your comp plan and your zoning ordinance. And I think the applicants understand that pretty well.
Okay.
I know Mr. Franklin has been very concerned, so this seemed like it's some direction, the right direction concerning you got too many now, and how can you limit something? And it could come into 1 hour area. We could have the same problem later. So I think that's something we should look at and worth considering.
I know when we first started talking about it, we said, you know, in my election district, you know, it's 3, potentially 5. But with the new election districts now, I think 2 of them actually would fall outside of it. So then, you know, if you don't do it the way Ms. Slater's kind of did it, you could end up with 10 or more right there in that area. If you don't, I think this is the correct way to do it to help that area right there. Because like I say, the power lines are going through there. They're going to continue. I know it's a lot of land right through there right now that's under option waiting to come. And like I say, with what we're doing, you know, we still got 2 that's pending. They got to go through this special exemption process and all too. So there ain't no guarantee that they got to get through this ring. So there's no guarantee they may not even get through it. I know it's still a big outcry even with those. And I think when those come, we're going to see a room full of people when that happens. That's very much against us and all. So I think it's a good start.
All right. So essentially, this is just putting it back on the planning commission to come back to us with their final recommendation.
Yes, sir. And just so you know, Virginia law requires that. I mean, you've got to refer to the planning commission,
Right.
and that's where we start.
Okay.
The only thing I would ask, if the planning commission looks at it when they bring it back to us, you know, have some maps that we can see kind of what.
Mr. Tanner, we'll get you some of those way before then.
And also too, I would like the planning commission to think about some type of setback defined in their zoning ordinances or whatever about setting it back from the river some. Because I know some of them, we don't want to, I don't think anybody wants to be going down a scenic river. I know part of the Meharron River is, and be looking at solar panels. I mean, if we want to try to do it responsibly too, maybe have them look at some kind of setback of a certain distance from.
I know that was one of the big
rivers.
issues when the one that applied for Embrace It.
Right.
Because you could see it from the reservoir and all. And that was one of the big reasons that one got kicked out.
Right.
You know, so, you know, it may need to put something there to define it a little more, but that was one of the big reasons it did get pushed out.
And also, have we, are we clear on on how we define the what is it, the 2 miles between the 2 facilities?
Mm-hmm.
Have we nailed down exactly what that means? Is it property line to property line? Is it, what is?
I'm gonna let Robert answer that one.
So, first solar panel.
It's measured from what it's fenced in to what it's fenced in on the other project. So it's from fence line to fence line.
And who determines that?
He does.
So there's nothing in the comp plan or ordinance or anything that says that? Really?
The zoning administrator's job is to interpret the ordinance. That's actually in state code, and that's what he gets to do.
Challenge. Oh, boy, oh,
With
boy.
saying that, can we more
Challenge.
define it at the planning commission?
Yeah, can we say
Yes,
it's gotta
sir.
be property line to property
He
line?
said it'd make his job a whole lot easier.
But if you do it from property line to property line, the 2 miles, what I'm looking at, that's not part of the project. That's not what's fenced in, is the facility. Because we require the setbacks from 150 feet from the property lines to the project. Then you're dealing with wetlands, and then you're dealing with sediment control ponds and stuff like that. So that's not really part of the facility.
Right, I think pretty much across the state, they look at basically fence line to fence line, because you could proffer, I'm gonna leave a 1,000-foot setback here, okay? Well, that's not part of the property, that's actually what you want, but you don't wanna consider that part of the project because it's gonna stay in trees. So usually those are not part of the project boundaries, correct?
Correct.
Well, we monitor what's fenced inside the fence, but we do supposed to watch on the outside because of the boundaries. They got to have certain trees and certain vegetation growing there. So we are kind of looking at that as part of the project, I would think.
Well, that's something I would like the planning commission to also look
And
into.
one thing also you gotta remember, they can actually survey it so that it is the fence line as the property. I mean, that's because they could have the other under lease or own it, but have it as two separate parts. So
Mr. Chairman, you might
There's
want
always a way
to-
around that.
You might want to amend the resolution based on what I've heard to add two other things you want the planning commission to look at. And one of them is a lakeside that you mentioned, and the other is fence to fence. I mean, that's fine. You can add that to this resolution.
Add that to this
Yeah,
resolution.
yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? If not, then we need a motion to adopt the resolution with the changes recommended concerning the amendment to the comp plan for solar facilities.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You've heard the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Slade?
Yes, sir. The next issue is a very important one, which involves a fair amount of parties and which for a while was sort of confused. I'll jump to the end and say I hope and believe this is going to turn out very well for everyone involved. But the history of this, one of the significant things which occurred was that the school board felt it had incurred costs in some testing of its water system, which it should not have incurred. I won't go into a whole lot of detail on that, but presented the town with an invoice for $58,000. So the school board was saying, town of South Hill, you owe us is $58,000. Well, if that's not resolved through negotiations, then I guess litigation is an option. And if that happens, the town joins in RSA, and if that happens, RSA's membership includes 2 counties in every town. So it really was not an ideal position to be in. That has potentially been resolved. Staff drafted a resolution for consideration by the Mecklenburg County Board of Supervisors. The Mecklenburg Board, considered it and adopted it. And what it says is that if the RRSA acquires ownership of water lines in the county, and there'll be a lot more about that here shortly, then the claim of the school board against the town will be dropped and withdrawn, which will, as I said, save a dispute, save honestly considerable embarrassment, discomfort for everyone here in the county. One of the reasons for that was if that happens, if the lines are sold, the public school becomes a customer of RRSA and does not pay out-of-town rates. And the result of that is a very significant reduction in the amount per 1,000 gallons charged to the school board. And Tom may help me, but I think it was around $2,300 a month or something reduction. So that takes care of what was an awkward moment. Then there's another moment, and that is for reasons it would not necessary to go into. but the new booster station located on Highway 58 across from the new school has not yet been connected to the water lines that serve in the area west of that, which include Boynton and Chase City, but also pretty importantly include the Microsoft facilities. And so that was an issue that was on the table. The town of South Hill, to give the town its credit, stepped up to the plate years ago, and there was a time when there was no Roanoke River Service Authority. And they got grant money, and they did things which enabled the construction and the installation and the operation of these water lines, which are very critical to the county now. But now there is an RRSA, and the RRSA is in the business of water production and distribution. That's what it does for a living, so to speak. And it's logical that the RRSA would own lines in the county. And as I mentioned earlier, if that happens, and there'll be a significant water rate reduction for those who are served by that water line. So there were negotiations between RRSA and the town. And the result of those negotiations was one which I think will be a very good result for everyone involved, and that is that the town has been asked to sell to the RRSA all water facilities located south and west of something which is known as Vault A. Vault A is a point of interconnection which is not in the town but a short distance south of the town. It is proposed that that Vault A, which is now, interestingly to me, owned jointly by RRSA and the town would convey its interest in Vault A. That would totally be in the ownership and control of the authority, Roanoke River Service Authority, and all lines leading from there south of Big Fork and then west to all the parts out here where we are would be owned by RRSA. There were negotiations, naturally, about the purchase price. The amount settled upon through those negotiations was $800,000. So then comes the question, where does RRSA come up with $800,000? Wayne and others here became involved and recognized that there is a need to service the long-term water needs of Microsoft, and we hope others, for water capacity, which we are going to run out of pretty soon if we're not careful. So the suggestion here was that the county purchase water capacity in RRSA, 400,000 gallons of capacity. That capacity does not exist now. The expansion of the plan will soon be underway, and we hope will be completed by January 1 of 2024, 5, I think. Yeah, 5. But however, to facilitate this transfer of the water facilities I've described, it is proposed that the county pay RRSA and reserve that capacity so that RRSA can use that money to buy the water lines, which will make the school board's claim and make all sorts of problems go away. There is, of course, a risk, theoretical risk, for buying something that doesn't yet exist, but you've got to believe that's pretty minimal when you're dealing with a public authority. So the recommendation, and I would also add that RRSA held a meeting and approved part of what needs to be done. The RRSA has not yet approved the purchase of the sale of water capacity of the county, because that did not exist at the time. So we're asking you if you would take action today to adopt 2 resolutions, and that would move the county online, on record, as committing to support RRSA in its purchase of these lines and to fund the purchase of capacity from RRSA for $800,000 so they'd have the money to buy the lines. The South Hill Town Council meets this evening. Both of these things are on their agenda. So whatever you do is subject to whatever they do. And hopefully what they do will approve this arrangement, which again, I think is very beneficial to all parties involved. If they do, then the RRSA is the final party who has to approve it, and they are convening in a meeting a week from tomorrow evening. So if they go into that meeting and the county and the town and the school board have all done what they would need to do, hopefully that would be pretty much an automatic thing. Now, there was a great deal of discussion about what the RRSA is already done, but there were very good questions, and at the end of it, the RRSA acted unanimously on, as was requested of it. So, what staff is proposing for the board is to consider recommending these two resolutions, one of which indicates that the board is going to purchase 400,000 gallons of capacity, and the other of which approves the contract, which we've gone ahead and signed. I will mention that because that's something else that involves a lot of people. But I negotiated this with the town's attorney. We're in agreement on the contract with some potentially minor tweaking after tonight. I don't know. So this resolution would authorize the contract to be signed on behalf of the county as presented to you, or as hereafter amended with the concurrence of me and Wayne. And if there's any big changes, you can be sure we won't do that without coming back. But if it's minor stuff, it'll just keep us moving forward. So we'd ask you to consider, please, adopting both of these resolutions.
Okay. All right. Any questions about?
Mr. Slayton, you did a wonderful job explaining all of that.
Thank you.
And that's a 25-year-old line.
Right.
So, and you know, it's gonna need to be,
Mr. Carter,
a lot of maintenance to it.
and part of his ongoing process of educating me, we talked about the line, and Wayne pointed out in typical Wayne fashion, yeah, it's an old line, needs more. We need it.
We ain't got another one.
we need the line. We've got to have the line.
We just bid another 16-inch line last month. Y'all did 1 mile, $1.6 million. So, so 25 miles. Yeah, do the math. 18 miles.
It's been a lot of work on this project, and I thank Mr. Slayton and Mr. Carter because
Mr. Tanner.
We've worked hard on this to try to get it to fruition, and it allows the county to move forward with the booster station too, which we need for our projects, and I think that it's going to work out well.
It sounds like a good deal.
It all makes complete sense, but as far as the county and legality going forward, we wouldn't have any problem. Say another problem with the water, we wouldn't be. It would be the service authority.
Service authority would be
completely no chance back to it.
Right, we're just giving them $800,000 out of your economic development fund to purchase the line, because ultimately, I think it was always planned that they were going to own the line, but because of requirements of the lending institutions, and I think in this case it was the state of Virginia with regards to their funding originally for 20 years to pay it back, that they wouldn't let them relinquish ownership to someone else because their contract was between the State Department of Corrections was with South Hill.
Okay.
So this just gets the ownership into who it should be. They're already responsible for the maintenance and operation, basically, of the line. This just clears up everything.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt these two resolutions.
All right, I guess we need to do them,
Or do we need to do them
looks like
separate?
we need to adopt each one individually.
Yes, and
Okay.
I would suggest a roll call.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt the first resolution.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the revolution.
That too. It's been a long day.
The resolution.
Revolting, run.
Not trying to do that.
The resolution to purchase of water capacity from Roanoke River Service Authority, and Mr. Slayton suggests we do a roll call. Jenny. Any discussion on that motion? I'm sorry. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Brinkley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy? Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Hargrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Spain?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes. All right. Thank you. All right, then we need a motion to, let's see, where am I here? The authority to, for RRSA to contract for the purchase and sale of water allocation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you've heard that motion. Any discussion? Jenny?
Mr. Brinkley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Hargrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Spain?
Yes.
Mr. Barber?
Yes. All right, thank you very much. All right, folks, that concludes our regular agenda items. After board member matters, we will need to go into closed session for personnel matters. But at this time, we'll open the floor up for board member matters. And Mr. Tanner, you want to start off?
Sure, I might be a little long-winded, but I will. First, Mr. Nichols, the new school looks amazing. Can't wait for everybody to get in and see what an amazing facility it is. It was very impressive. Also, I'd like to recognize there were 4 members of the South Hill Fire Department last week that traveled to the hard-hit area in Kentucky of Hazard, Kentucky, and assisted with their search and rescue operations, and also took a truckload of supplies out there when they went. And I think they said it's a very humbling experience. They said a lot of these people lost everything that they had, so I'd just like to recognize them for going out there and being great ambassadors for their department, and it's also for Mecklenburg County. Also, I talked with Ms. Lundy. I attended the Dominion meeting a few weeks ago at Dogwood in South Hill, and they had all of their pictures and drawings of all of the proposed electric lines. The only one that concerned me, they had one that one of the proposals was to cross the Meherrin River just upstream of Whittles Mill. And the way their picture shows, especially during the fall, you'd be able to see the power lines. And I would like to contact them to ask them if there's a way they could move them, because I know that's one of the most scenic and photographed areas on the Meherrin River. If there's something that they could do to be able to possibly move those somewhat to take them out of view, I think would be the best thing. And also, what an honor for us to recognize one of the citizens who's a member of the Greatest Generation. I mean, there's just not many left. And also, Sheriff Hawkins, and I know Alex helped them work on this grant for these school resource officers. I think that's tremendous for our schools. Nobody ever wants to get that call. So we're doing everything we can to hopefully take care of that. And also, real quick, I just wanted to mention the Impact Mecklenburg group that came to us a few months ago, completed their mission, I think was the best way to put it, here in Mecklenburg. So they worked on 8 projects, 7 of them in Mecklenburg, 1 in Brunswick. They put new roofs on houses, wheelchair ramps, decks, all of this type stuff. And they had a tremendous impact in the county. I will say they'll be coming back next year. And I know they're working with Mr. Nichols to be able to use the school facilities again, but I think this is a great group that have really come to Mecklenburg to make a difference. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Yeah, our, these were youth projects, by the way. They came from youth programs from various churches around the county. And I know our church participated in it as far as furnishing some meals and that sort of thing. So it's an awesome, and kudos to Lori Wright and whoever works with her on this, because it's got to be a demanding thing to put all this together and coordinate all this project. So it's an awesome thing. So, all right, thank you, sir. Ms. Lundy?
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to commend Alex on his effort in redistricting. I think he's done a great job. And I'm so glad that he's the board and the county is waiting off in 2023 before we put that new districting in effect. Because many people just call many times to find out, what district am I in? What district am I in? And I'm trying to tell them. But what I would like for you to do, as we have in the past, have a map, a big map, to give each one of us with all the districts on, paper map. So when we go to these, our constituents, we can show them, they can see it better there that way than we just telling them, okay, by word of mouth. So thank you for all your work. Also, thanks also to Mr. Nichols, the superintendent of schools to Mecklenburg County. Thanks also to all the citizens of the county, the businesses, the students, and especially the education committee who was part of the grand roots of this working of this new school. I guess you remember first we had dinner in conversation with the school board, first time they had met jointly together, before it got off the ground. Then the two boards visited schools in the county to see how bad they were, that we need to move forward quickly. Then we also jointly went to other schools in the state. Both boards did, representative from each board, to find out and look at some ideas of other schools about the size of what we were anticipating our population to be. We had many conversations, and I really did enjoy working with Mr. Nichols and the school board. You know, this is a great investment for this county, but this is the future of our students, future of the next generations to come. I was also glad to see that they are working on the financing of the new schools, not the new school, but of the elementary schools. And I don't think we can get any lower than 3.3 or 3.4% in interest at this particular time. So I think we need to move forward as soon as possible. At one time, we had a committee meeting in education, said it would be about 5 years before this before we can do this. I hope we move forward less than 5 years. Hopefully the coming year, if possible, we can move forward on Chase City, Clarksville first, then Chase City. And hopefully we'll be making plans soon before the year's gone for a new Lake Cross Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin?
Well, you know, being chairman of the Secondary Roads Committee, I've had people this week, the last few weeks, calling me up happy because they've got three dirt roads are being paved right now. So
First time in years.
and so I know y'all gonna want to try to get this job away from me, and you've been fighting me for 12 years almost trying to take it away, but things are going well. You know, again, the new school is just unbelievable. You know, we had our governor, state representatives come in here Friday, and we're pretty much in awe of what we had here. You know, that's unreal. But, you know, in saying that, I just want to thank Paul for his vision. You know, when we started this, we went through that thing, you know, 2 schools, 1 school, and, you know, to be able to bring it all together, to be able to do these learning centers and all, we really needed 1 school. I didn't hear nobody Friday talking about it. Sure wish we had 2 schools or anything. Everybody was real happy with that. But just thanks again, Paul, for your vision of what we did. Because, I mean, it's like they said, people are going to be coming here to see what we got in there. I mean, we are real fortunate that. And, you know, so I think we need to take pride in what we got in this county. And a great example of that was this morning coming up here. There was an older gentleman walking up the road there, had parked his truck down the road, and he was walking along picking up trash off the road. Not because he had to or something, because he wanted to, because he took pride in what we got here. And the citizens of Mecklenburg need to take pride in what we really got here. We are very, very fortunate. We need to take good care of it. You know, Mr. Hargrave, I'm sorry, but between Mr. Tanner and Ms. Lundy and myself, we have took all your time. And maybe next month.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jennings?
Oh, you're coming to me now, okay. Yeah. Well, it's, you know, it's always a pleasure to be in the capital city on the second Monday of every month. So, 2 things that I have different from everybody else, but I know last year this time, personal property values were really changing and increasing. And we were notified in September about it, or updated about it, and then in October, and it was kind of too late to do anything, and I think the county ended up getting $2.6 million through that process. And I was just wondering where we are with that now. You know, I know other counties surrounding us reacted to that and did things a little differently than we did, but that was their business and ours is ours, I guess. But Wayne, are we personal property up or down? Or?
It had dropped earlier. We won't have the new values to the end of August for July 1. Okay, but when we were looking at it several months ago during the budget, it had dropped some. It is not anywhere near pre-pandemic levels, but what was mostly dropping was 4-wheel drive SUVs. Gas was $4.80 a gallon. That was dropping. Small vehicles that get good mileage were holding their own. And what I've seen across the state, they still are from everyone. Of course, everybody else is pretty much besides us is using a January date. and that's when they saw the huge increases. But they're not, that's one reason why we were looking at being able to do the school was the increased values off of the personal property. I don't know whether they'll ever go back down. I don't think, Alex and I have had this discussion, to where they were, we don't believe they'll ever go back. You know, this has been a year now that they've been up, and they show no real signs of waning.
So, and it took the big increase, I guess, from 2020 to last year, right?
Yeah, to 2021, yes, sir.
Yeah, 20.
They are down a little bit, but not really significant amounts is what we're seeing.
Yeah, you know,
early.
we talked about it. I just didn't want to leave it alone because we had talked about it. I think it's our duty to, you know, take care of the taxpayers along with taking care of the county.
Right.
So, the other thing was, I know I brought up in 4 or 5 meetings back about the reassessment. And one of the concerns was timberland that was cut over timberland, and the decrease in value wasn't reflected in reassessment. So I reached out to Virginia Farm Bureau, and the guy there I talked to, he connected me with the state forester in Virginia. And I had several conversations, several email exchanges with him about what's going on, and this was sent to me Friday. So I think they can help resolve this issue for landowners that have timbers cut. And I'll read this, it's short. Good afternoon, Mr. Jennings. We will be more than happy to provide you with information related to properties in which timber was harvested in Mecklenburg County. We can send you a report of our harvest notification listing periodically that will allow Mecklenburg County to provide up-to-date information to landowners within their county regarding your land use tax program. Just let us know how often you would like this report and the date in which you would need it, and we will be glad to send it to you. Thank you for reaching out to us, and please let me know if you have any questions. So that being said, I don't know what the time frame that needs to happen, Wayne. When I guess they just notified the Department of Forestry, notify the Commissioner of Revenue's office and tell them this track's been cut.
That's what I think currently happens, but it happens after the fact, and it's once a year they do it, is my understanding from Ed.
Okay,
So
once a year.
they
But
do that.
reassessments every 2 years, so
Correct.
why wouldn't that?
Well,
I'm
but-
sure all of them can't hit, you know.
Right, but-
But a lot of them would hit.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He gets a report from them, but it's not up to date. So for example, if you cut it, let's say in April, and the reassessment's based upon December. If they don't notify him prior to that January date, then it would have the timber still on. Because I don't know when they notify. It could be the next April before they notify. So that's the.
So is it reflected in the next 2 year?
That's an Ed question.
reassessment?
No, I don't have any idea.
Well, it should be.
That's an Ed question. He'll be here next month.
Should be. But anyway, that's the only 2 things I had. Just want to let everybody know I was keeping up with that and will continue to keep up with it.
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up somewhere, Mr. Jennings? I know last year we said, what is 2.8 million?
2.6.
2.6 million.
At least that's what the email said.
And that was, we called that extra, I think, extra. And then we took that number and divided it up between the rescue. So is this year, it may be 2.3. Is we going to continue to call that extra? Or is that going to be part of the revenue?
That was actually part of the revenue this year, and that's how we're doing the school with is we actually had that as revenue, and that's how we're doing the school funding for the barn.
So it's in, kind of like the
It
normal tax
decreases.
and all, so it's not going to be considered extra 2.3 or anything no more. It's just, it's part of the tax.
Well, as we told y'all, it will slowly decrease, but whether it will ever go back to what it was, I don't know.
Okay.
But that's what when we put in the budget, that was the money set aside to pay for.
So it's not going to be extra just coming in, it's part of the budget going forward.
Right, and it'll probably decrease over time, just like all other personal property values do.
Right.
It all goes into we did it that one time because we didn't know we were getting it. We knew we were having it this year, so it's part of the total revenue.
So once we got it, we're going to continue to get it.
Until it slowly decreases. I mean, a lot of that also was people bought more cars.
Right.
And new cars. So we always get those.
Okay.
But the over amount won't be dedicated, like we just dedicated it for this past.
But back on the timber part, I'm going to email them back and tell them the minute they know to notify the Commissioner of Revenue's office.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I remember when Ed brought that up, he said he gets once a year from them, but it's after the fact. And when the time frame is as to when the timber was cut, when the reassessment is, and when he gets notified, there's a slight delay.
You got cut over timberland that's cut over timberland for, by the time it's prepped for planting and by the time it's planted, you got 3 years there that it's still cut over timberland.
And I think what
some
they
of
would-
this land has not been reflected like that way.
I think
mean,
what
I can
he
show
said,
you the.
I understand,
the
but what he
cases.
said was actually, he gets notified when it's planted. He doesn't get notified from them when
Well,
it's cut.
He's gonna get notified when it's
Yeah,
cut.
because if I'm not mistaken, his statement was, I
Either
get
monthly or
notified the
quarterly,
year it is
so they
planted.
would-
Yeah, I will, probably,
Yeah.
monthly or whatever. He's gonna get notified when it's cut now.
It's up to, again, I don't have anything to do with that, but that's what he stated was, I think when he gets notified when it's planted.
I
so
just
they
want to
can
be
reflect
fair
it.
to landowners
Yeah.
that have the timberland cut. You know, when the timber's growing, the value is raised through reassessment. If the timber's cut, then the value should be lowered through reassessment. It's not rocket science.
Should be,
Very good.
but he said they don't know unless you.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Mr. Hargrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know Mr. Brankley said you didn't have any time, but I'm gonna grant you some time.
And
You can borrow from him.
we,
for
we,
next week.
we've been talking about selling and buying from South Hill, River Authority. And can I just sell my time to Mr. Brankley, please?
At a premium.
He's willing to purchase.
You better use it, because I'm not gonna buy it.
I just want to thank everybody. I just want to thank to be a part of the process the whole time that I've been here in the schools and everything that has been improved for our living conditions for our citizens and for ourselves. It means a lot to me. I don't know about anybody else, but I just love being around you guys. We don't agree on everything, but we're not disagreeable. And so in so doing, I'm going to send Mr. Brankley. I'm going to send him a bill for my time this time. And if not, then he has to relinquish his time next time unto me. So thank you, Mr. Brankley. I appreciate it.
I'll let y'all keep up with all that. Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a whole lot really, but just to hit back on what Mr. Jennings was saying, I think it should be a monthly report. Kind of concerned why it hadn't been that way, because we're not talking about a small amount of money over a long period of time here. But anyway, thanks, Ms. Jennings, for following up with that. The new school, what else could you say about that? It's just, amazing. And I want to hit on what the governor said. Get ready, that people are coming. They're going to come see our area. That's going to help the local economy. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. And one of the best things I like is, the different curriculum we're going forward with, for the trees and the building and all that right there. I really think it's an investment for this area because, it's not right. It doesn't take rocket science to figure this. It's our workforce is limited, along with probably the rest of the world. But I think with in time, we'll have more younger people coming right out to fill our local workforce, which in turn is a huge investment, generational investment for this area. So I'm, thankful for that. And lastly, I just want to, give a shout out to the Planning Commission. I don't know if they get the recognition that they deserve at times. They field all of these and go through them all before they ever get here. If it's solar or, the instance with the pigs this morning or the hogs, they're the ones that deal with the hard part of it. So I know there have been times this board went against them, but historically it hadn't been very many. And I just want to say thank you for their hard work. That's all I have.
Mr. Jones?
I'd just like to put out a big thank you to the school board and to this board of supervisors here and what's happened over the last few years of getting our school, our junior high and high school built and all that went into planning and everything to pull this off. And now we're moving on to the Clarksville Elementary and future Chase City. Education is so important in this world we're in nowadays. And to go in there and take a lead like this county has speaks very well of the people of, when Angie is trying to promote our area or sell a company coming here, don't think the education and the school facilities is very, very important. The airport's very, very important. How the board reacts, all those things come into spokes of the wheel, so to speak. And it's like a dog chasing his tail. You got to start somewhere. Well, we've put all this time and effort into the school system. It's going to pay off for us down the road tremendously, I think. And as far as the Mr. Davenport, with the numbers he gave us. I appreciate all the time that went into that. And we're just not going to see interest rates like this down the road. And I think it's a win-win for us to be able to do this at this time too. That's about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spain?
I'm thinking that I still feel excited from Friday. I reflect back on a few years. Mr. Carr, you put up chairs and table out there. We would meet with consultant. Mr. Nicholas was still hanging with this one school system, slowly worked from 2 to 1. And then Friday, I was reminiscing on, my. We have opportunity to complete one school, it look nice. And now we're talking about starting spending money for our other school. Now, what more can we ask for from Mecklenburg County to thank the citizen for a project that big with low taxes?
Yeah.
This is just magnificent. So everyone should be thankful for what has taken place over the last few years and what we are still doing. You know what? We're not begging. Thanks to the citizen. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I
Thank
just
you.
have one other thing to say.
Thank you.
I just had one other thing. I want to tell you, when I was up there, Paul, and we were sitting up there in that gymnasium, I wanted to go back to school. I did. I said, man, to walk the halls in this place and have this. Anyway, they won't let me, I know. It really was something that entered my mind. Man, this is just great. I don't know if the kids coming in there are going to feel the same way. They don't have the age that I have on it, but that was the feeling.
Well, I love the school, but I did not want to go back to school. But the day I graduated, if you were standing in front of the door, I run over top of you.
Right, I was going to say it.
I do want to thank the board members for all of y'all attending. I think every board member was there on Friday, and I think that I really appreciate it. I think that's awesome. It shows that you have definitely the interest of the students in this county at heart, and I really appreciate everybody's attendance. And I want to encourage the public, when it is opened up for public tours and whatever, I want to encourage our citizens to go and see this facility. You really don't appreciate it until you walk through the doors and walk those halls and see what's going on out there. And I also want to encourage the parents to please encourage your children to get involved in these career centers. That is very important, and they need that parental encouragement, to get them involved and explain to them what the long-term advantages are of that. So, and Mr. Wilkins's comments about the Planning Commission, excellent comments, and I have said for years that that's why we have a Planning Commission, is to do all the legwork and bring to us their recommendations. And you're right, we've typically always, followed their recommendations. There have been times when we may have sent things back for further study or whatever, but they do an excellent job, and so we count on them for that. We do need to go into closed session for personnel matters. I need a motion to go into closed session.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to go into closed session. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are now in closed session. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Mr. Franklin said break for it. He was gonna roll you on.
Rejected the whole.
But,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we go back into open session.
all right, we have a motion to go back into open session. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're now in open session. We need a motion to certify the closed session.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
We have a motion to certify our closed session. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We need to take no action from our discussions in closed session. Anyone else have anything to bring before the board at this time? No, sir. If not, I wish you all a good day and avoid the heat, stay high.